Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating business case. It's all about launching a fashion brand under, well, some of the most extreme pressure you can imagine. We're talking talent, timing, and a seriously ticking clock.
So, let's just dive right in. Imagine this. You've got 60 grand in just 1 month. Could you launch a brand new brand from scratch? Because that's the exact high-stakes challenge our entrepreneurs facing in this case. It's this incredible opportunity slammed right up against a deadline that feels, well, almost impossible.
All right, so before we get into all the money and the crazy deadlines, we really need to meet the artist at the center of this whole thing. And look, we're not just talking about someone who's handy with a sewing machine. No, this is a genuine creative force, someone with a style that is just completely their own. And yeah, this is no newcomer to the scene. We're talking about a decade of cultivated talent. 10 years. That's a long time to spend honing a unique aesthetic, pretty much since they were a teenager. So there's this really deep well of experience to pull from here. In fact, the source material literally calls them a prodigy. I mean, that's a pretty powerful word, right? It tells you everything you need to know. Their core competency, their superpower, is without a doubt their design skill. That unique vision, that's the entire foundation this whole business is supposed to be built on.
Okay, so now let's get to the inciting incident. This is where that massive opportunity we talked about slams head-on into that impossible deadline. And trust me, this is where the story really starts to get tense.
It all kicks off with a gift. A pretty significant one, too. A capital injection of $60,000. I mean, for a new designer, that is the absolute dream, right? That's the kind of money that can take a passion project and turn it into a real, legitimate business.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, here's the catch. This isn't just a gift, it's a challenge. It comes with a very explicit rule. Establish the entire brand, from the first idea to the final launch, in just 1 month. 30 days. That is it. No wiggle room.
So you can see how this completely transforms the whole thing. It's not a careful, planned project anymore. It's a flat-out, frantic sprint against the clock. It becomes this massive, high-stakes gamble where every single decision, from what fabric to use to how to build the website, is suddenly mission-critical. There's absolutely zero room for error. And all of this incredible pressure, it forces a really fundamental question. One that's, right at the heart of pretty much any creative business. It's that classic conflict every artist who tries to become an entrepreneur has to deal with.
And that dilemma is this. How do you take all of that amazing, unique, creative talent and actually translate it into a business that can survive? A business that can thrive. How do you pay the bills without completely selling out your original vision? That's the million-dollar question, or in this case, the $60,000 question.
And this really lays out that core conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got the creative vision. That's the soul of the brand, right? But on the other, you have these brutal commercial realities, the need to actually get a viable business off the ground, and on this just insane timeline. It's a constant tug-of-war between the two.
So you get it, right? The key thing here is that this isn't just one single challenge. It's more like a perfect storm. It's a collision of a bunch of major business hurdles all hitting at the exact same time. Honestly, any one of these would be tough to handle by itself, but all of them together, it feels almost impossible. But when you're faced with a dilemma this big, the case analysis doesn't just leave you hanging. It actually recommends a really specific, modern, and frankly, very clever strategy for how to get through this storm.
And that recommended path is what's called a direct-to-consumer model. You've probably heard of it as DTC. Basically, instead of trying to get your stuff into big department stores, which can take months, even years, the idea is to cut them out and go straight to the customer yourself, online.
So why is this DTC thing the perfect play here? Well, it really comes down to a 3-step advantage. First, you build directly. That means you can move fast because there are no middlemen. Second, you learn super quickly. You're getting customer data and feedback right away. And third, you can scale efficiently. You're in total control of your growth and your brand story. It's a strategy that's tailor-made for speed and control, which is exactly what's needed.
Okay, so we've looked at the problem, we've looked at the solution. So what's the big lesson here? What's the main takeaway from this whole high-stakes sprint? What can we all learn from a challenge this intense?
Well, the biggest lesson, and it's a powerful one, is that sometimes constraints are actually a gift. Seriously. This case really shows how tight deadlines and a small budget can force you to be incredibly focused and innovative. That lack of time and money, it forces you to be brilliant and builds a super strong foundation for what comes next. And this quote from the source material, it just nails it. It perfectly sums up the entire journey. See, for any creative entrepreneur, you get to a point where your talent is a given. Everyone knows you're good. The real test is whether you can build an actual, sustainable business around that talent. It's that classic pivot from being an artist to becoming a CEO.
Which kind of leaves us with one last provocative thought to chew on. You know, we often think the right time to chase a dream is when all the stars align and everything is perfect. But maybe, just maybe, this case suggests that the real right time is when the challenges are just as huge as the opportunity itself.